so-called studies. So, me going to college and, I had to do a paper one time on an essay on Rockefeller. So I was reading and talk about Standard Oil, and I read the entire thing. And so I tried to get by just writing something slick, And the professor, he said, man, you need to, I want the history. He said, I'm gonna get you a C if you don't give me what I want. He said, I want the history of Rockefeller. And then I studied the history of Rockefeller, and studying the history of Rockefeller, I understood the history of this country, right? Understood the history of business. It took my mind to another level. So sometimes we got to go back in time and we got to study what was in order to know what is. We got to study Malcolm, we got to study Martin Luther King, we got to study democracy, Gabriel Prosser, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Carter G. Woodson, all of the ancient brothers, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, H. Rap Brown, Fred Hampton. We got to go back and study those brothers. We got to understand what happened. And then once we study them brothers, we got to apply it to the times. We got to see what's going on. Because if you go listen to a Malcolm X speech, Malcolm X going to be like, white supremacy. He going to be like, the white man is standing on our back. You listen to any brother from the Nation of Islam message today, they saying practically the same thing. Dr. Clyde Anderson, he said that in 1885, Black folks comprise 1% or 2% of the wealth of this country and 50% of the prison population. In 2025, Black folks represent 2% of the wealth of this country and 50% of the prison. That means we haven't studied, we haven't learned from history, and we always move on impulse, And it's sad, it's really sad that there's no Black men in the household, and women are raising the children, so therefore they're raising the killers and the drug dealers, Women are raising the killers and the drug dealers. It's the reason why God gave a man an Adam apple, because when he sit your ass down, it's equivalent to a lion's roar. When a lion roars, it scares the shit out of the elephants and all the giraffes in the jungle, because that strength, that male dominance is what those children need. A woman cannot raise a child. She cannot raise a boy, because you have to be a man to raise a boy. And we see statistically that I'm correct, because 85% of the homes are single parenting. When I was a kid, we got beat with extension cords. We got beat with switches. Wasn't no switches. Wasn't no Uzis. Wasn't no 9mm. It was get your butt at the house at 9 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? I mean, get up before 9 to go to school. That was the only 9 that was going on back then. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't no AK. The only AK was mama spitting that AK out of her mouth. Boy, you know what I'm saying? And we were taught to go to church. Even if we wasn't Christian, even if we didn't believe in God, we was made to go to church to a certain age. And, we was taught to go to college. We were taught to go to school. All that stuff ain't happening now because you don't have that male figure. How can you work and send your kids to a daycare and give your kids adequate rearing? How can you rear a child adequately if you ain't there to nurture that child? You see what I'm saying? And I think that that's one of the biggest problems with brothers. That's why they can't learn, because, young people are raising themselves. But, fortunately, at the hip-hop fraternity, what I've built has been so strong, we've been able to galvanize the young people, because I hit them where it's relevant at. They like music. Kids are going to the studio all day, so if we can get them in a facility, like we do every Monday at the Ice Bar, 5456 Fayetteville Road, and we offer them free services, right? We give them mentorship. We have speakers come in and speak every week. We let them park for free. We let them perform free, give them free entry. It's our poor man YMCA. It's a poor man's YMCA. But yet we stopping the violence, because if they're in there performing, ain't no killing, right? And then if they see a man like me who's accomplished, who hustle every day, get out there and get money, and, own several businesses and stuff like that, it give them something to look up to. So a lot of young men call me. They say, Ken, man, I want to be just like you. I want to be a businessman. I don't want to be I don't want to be a pimp no more. I don't want to be a dope dealer no more. And we need more people like yourself and myself that's creating a positive image for the young men. And that's what we do at the Hip Hop Fraternity. We got 22,000 members. If people don't believe me, they can go to hhfmedia.com. The members is right there, no cap. We form businesses. We teaching them financial literacy. And that's what they got to learn. You got to teach financial literacy because it takes finance to uplift a nation. We can't brush our teeth without a toothbrush. We can't go to the bathroom without toilet paper. We can't survive without water and the basic necessities, food, clothing, and shelter. So in order to get that, you got to either be gainfully employed or you got to be self-employed, right? So we teaching them financial literacy. We teaching them how to, register their music, about ASCAP, BMI, the blockchain. We teach them about NFTs, NFCs. We teaching them about cryptology, cryptocurrency, because these are the things that they need to know. Web3, AI, they talk about IT, informational technology. Well, we doing DT, digital technology. We teach them how to, work the data, how to do SEOs, search engine optimizations. Just giving them different game that they're going to need in order to segue into the fourth industrial revolution, which is the internet. Because the internet don't know if you're black or white. You put a good product up there, it's going to boom. Look at black media, you know what I'm saying? Look what y'all doing. You couldn't do this 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you watch Fox News, you watch CNN, and that was a rap.com. Whatever they told you, that was the narrative. Now we could get the narrative from RZA, from Nori, from Pimpin Ken, from Goldie, that comes on these shows regularly, and other shows throughout the nation, Drink Champs and Boss Talk and all the rest of them, street life, real life street story. So we can get our own narrative. So all these things is part of the development of, the so-called Negro nation, the so-called black nation. We have to, first of all, practice unity. That's why I work so hard to pull the brothers together, And then once we get unity, we need to practice financial literacy. Because, our first 30 years can be legacy, but our next 30 years got to be dynasty. If we got to understand the roads that we take to get to that destiny is not going to be the ones that get us there. It's going to be our detours. So we got to be innovative. We got to be creative. We got to play chess and not checkers. We got to be vertical. We got to know what vertical integration is. We got to know what diversification is. We got to know how to diversify. We got to know how to set up multiple streams of income. And we got to know how to keep that money. You can get money, but if you don't know what capital gains is, if you don't know how to evade certain laws, they do it all the time. You don't own anything. You control everything. See, we have companies, but we don't own the companies. We don't own nothing. We don't have no wealth. But the company has the wealth. So we don't want to pull that wealth out the money. We want to park that money in real estate, park that money in insurance company, park that money in credit building companies. That way we don't have to pay capital gains. And we can build wealth, and that's how you build wealth over a period of time. We at the Hip Hop Fraternity, we got gift cards. So we able to do what Howard Schwartz did. We're going to be able to take those gift cards to the Hip Hop Fraternity and raise money. And then you ain't have to, what was it, FDIC, whatever it is, you don't have to be regulated by them. Howard Schwartz, he acts as a bank. That's Starbucks. He raised billions of dollars in money that he don't have to pay no interest on or nothing. And some people don't never use the cards. So we got to see what the system is doing. We got to look at what Blackstone and BlackRock is doing. BlackRock have $11 trillion under asset management. So what we have to do, we have to figure out how can we manage the assets of our people. How can we take that money and show them how to invest that money in different investments, that will become lucrative in the long run. So these are the basic things that we have to learn, within our community. Because if we, right now, it's a projection that by the next 2 years, we would be a permanent underclass. meaning that we would be locked, sealed, boxed into poverty if we don't get our S together. So we have to get ourselves together. You look at the Jews, you know, their money bounced 12 times. The Arabs' money bounced 15 times. The Asian money bounced 10 or 15 times. I just left California. It's 32 banks in China and California. They got more banks in one city than we got collectively, right?
You said 32?
32 banks in China. So it's like you can just, everywhere you go is banks. So what they do is they bring their people over there and they invest in their money back into each other. You know, they live in one apartment and they eventually become wealthy. You know, I like what the Chinese is doing, you know, technology-wise, societal-wise, and we need to figure out how to mimic the Chinese or the brother Touré in Burkina Faso, you know, because we are the ones who control the minerals. The minerals is in our mouth. See, in Africa, the minerals is in the ground, but we are the main people that spit these lyrics, this hip-hop lyrics. So it's gold and it's oil coming out of our mouth because it created 5 billionaires. You know the names, Puffy, Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, you know, the list goes on. And then untold amount of millionaires. So we understand that. How do we control that? So what we're doing at the Hip Hop Fraternity is that we're centralizing, you know, hip hop, meaning that we got our own magazine, we got our own radio, we got our own clothing line, we got our own award show. Thank God BET ain't here no more. It's just gonna make it better for us, you know. But we foreseen all this way back in the gap, but we didn't look at it that they were gonna fall off. We looked at it like it's gonna become more Europeanized, more anglicized. It's gonna be more whitewash. You know, it's gonna be more, you know, of a white thing than a black thing. BET is black entertainment, you know. So how you have black entertainment when you got, you know, Europeans controlling it? So what we said is let's control HHF awards. Let's control HHF magazine, the narrative. Let's have HHF films. So we don't have to go to Hollywood. We can create our own narratives. And that's how you're going to be able to do it. You got to come together as a collective and build an ecosystem that's synchronized, you know, that all is interconnected and work under one auspices.
Come on now, Pimpin Ken. What words of advice would you have for a young black man that's trying to reach his fullest potential?
Well, you know, first of all, man, you know, you got to have a belief.
Yeah.
You know, you got to believe in something. Once you, whatever the mind believes and can see, the mind can achieve. And then after you believe it, you got to have ambition. You know, you got to be ambitious. You got to be hungry. If I put you in the basement for 2 days and I don't feed you, and I put a steak and some macaroni and some greens, it sound good, don't it? Yeah. I'm hungry right now. Yeah. So if you put all that there, what you gonna do? You're gonna be trying to break those chains. Well, the same way you feel about that food after being hungry for 2 days, how you got to feel about your dreams and goals. You got to work harder than everyone. See, life today is about who get there fast. You know, it's about fast because we live in a very, very, very fast environment. You know, I mean, it's 5 AI. You know, I think Elon just came out with some AI. Facebook, everybody's moving quick. And, you know, we have to move quicker than what we're moving. You know, there's no time for procrastination. So young men, procrastination is the graveyard of all success. Procrastination is the graveyard of all success. Trying to put something off tomorrow that you could do today is guaranteeing your demise. You know, so you got to act now. And it's another saying. In life, you get there either first or you number one. What made Michael Jordan so great was not that the greatest, was not that he was a better player than all other players. It was one simple thing. He was 3 seconds faster than all of the other players. So when they try to get him, he'd cross him. You can see him, they'd fly that way, 3 seconds. When he go up in the air, everybody jumping at him. All he needs is 3 seconds to release. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when he passed, it's 3 seconds. Magic Jordan, the same thing. Larry Bird. If you look at any person, Jordan, Mike Tyson, 3 seconds faster than his opponent. That's what gets you to greatness. You got to be 3 seconds faster than anybody else doing whatever it is that you're doing. You know, that means that you call that bank 3 seconds before Your competitor called and they said, well, we can't do it, we just gave a loan, the 3 million. You know what I'm saying? So it's always 3 seconds, and that's what I try to do. I try to be ahead of the curve. I try to be 3 seconds, the game. As soon as AI came, I was on it. As soon as Web3 came out, I was on it. As soon as NFTs came out, I was on it. As soon as, internet radio, I was on it. WordPress, I was on it. Build your own social media sites, I was on it. You just got to be 3 seconds. And then by the time people realize what you did, it's too late. And those, the Mark Zuckerbergs, those your Bill Gates, that's your Jeff Bezos. They just 3 seconds faster than everybody else. Jack Ma over there in China. China, the entire country of China, they 3 seconds faster than the United States. They GDP was 2% 50 years ago. Now their GDP is 17%. America's 23%. They said within the next 2 years, they'll be surpassing America. They, some of the countries over there were rural areas, meaning that it was uninhabited. You know what I'm saying? With no people there. And now they full-blown cities, right with New York, 3 seconds. Japan doing the same thing. Africa is blossoming. You know what I'm saying? They move. Everybody moving fast now. Only people slow is the African Americans. We too slow. You know what I'm saying? We wait for the world to catch up with us. The world already surpassed us. And if we don't realize that and we don't understand how to do business, you know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, our children is going to be an endangered species. And it's designed by that way because they're becoming an endangered species by nature. They're trying to nurture us into being it. They're trying to social engineer us into destruction, because the black man penis, as Francis Cress Wilson said, it is the real weapon of mass destruction. Because if you allow 100 Africans to go in any area and amalgamate with them white women or with them Arabs or them Chinese, them babies are going to come out looking like Barack Obama all day. Barack Obama. And that's what they scared of. That's why prison is a form of contraceptive. You know what I'm saying? AIDS was put in the black community to deter black men from being so promiscuous. We don't understand that. These are facts. These ain't something that Pimpin Ken is saying. These are facts. These are things that are going on real time because your penis is a weapon of mass destruction. They make everything, the bullet in the symbol of penis, says Francis Cress. Well, the Washington Monument is made in a shape of a penis, says Francis Cress Wilson. She gives the game. You need to study the ISIS paper. She break it down, and that sister, man, may God bless her soul, she was the answer to the black man's revolution. If we follow her and Dr. Naeem Akbar and Kawanza Jufu, Dr. Ben Jacano, and Dr. Chancellor Williams, that's the answer to the black man's solution. They figured it out a long time ago, and they used the same game. That stuff you see Trump doing, that's white supremacy, man. Calling Africa shithole countries, treating the African dignitaries like they ain't nothing, lying, talking about they killing farmers live in the press. That's white supremacy, bro. You know what I'm saying? That shit is real. But the only way you combat that is to understand it and understand that it's a religion. As Tariq Nasheed always say, white supremacy is a religion. You know what I'm saying? If you understand that, then you can navigate. I was with one of my Jewish friends the other day, and we were talking, and I told him, he said, what's your secret? I said, the same secret y'all got, diversification, vertical integration, brand integration. I said, we everywhere. I said, we in everything. We got y'all got Silicon Valley, we got our own social media site. I said, y'all got a lobby, we got a lobby too. I said, y'all got Hollywood? I said, we got our own TV network. We got our own film company. I said, y'all got Wall Street? We got Black Wall Street, which is hip hop. And he started laughing. He said, man, I never looked at it like that. He said, but that's brilliant. And this dude, he's smart as hell. He's a nice little smart Jewish young man, very intelligent. But I was trying to tell him, I said, man, we trying to mimic what your people doing for our people. We trying to get our people in multiple streams of income. We're trying to get our people diversified, where they don't just go and get beauty shops and car washes and the stuff we've been doing for the last 100 years. Everybody got a car wash. Everybody got a beauty shop. Everybody got a nail shop. Everybody got a beauty supply. Everybody got a daycare. Everybody got a home care. Nobody talking about purchasing skyscrapers. Nobody talking about buying banknotes. Do you know you could buy a banknote that's worth $1 million for $100,000? And that if you can find the person who the note belonged to and you work out a payment plan with them and they pay you consistently for 1 year, that you can go get $750,000 off that banknote? That's what those collection agencies do. Those are people that bought notes. What you think the housing bubble was when the housing bubble was 2008 through the predatory loan? Those people went and bought those foreclosed homes for pennies. They bought them for pennies, right? And then they went and they sold them to the foreigners. So when they sold them to the foreigners, guess what they did? They kicked all the people out down where everybody lived. Everybody told me, I'm downtown, I live in Buckhead. I live in Midtown. But you don't have no equity. You're paying rent. Rent does not generate equity. You didn't gave up your beautiful home. You didn't gave up the science of real estate, because real estate is the realest shit. You know what I'm saying? You gave up the real estate. Now you're spending 8 years in an apartment or in a condo, and you don't have no equity. You have no money that you can borrow against. You can't do a mortgage. You can't do a second mortgage. You can't borrow against the mortgage. So what we're doing backwards. But they're doing it purposely to us. You know what I'm saying? It's all strategy. So we got to wake up. We got to get back into buying property, because property is the best way. Ask any rich person, why they put their money in real estate or buy a house for $200,000, because they know it's going to appreciate, and they also know they can't be taxed on that money. You can't tax somebody on something that's parked. They park their money. Bill Gates just bought, what they say, 52,000 acres or something. All he did was put his money where it can't be touched. It can't be taxed. So we got to learn these basic things, man, to get to the next level. We got to understand credit. People say, if you got $100 million, Ken, what you gonna do with it? I'm a borrower against it. I'm gonna go borrow. If I give me $100 million, I'm gonna go borrow $60 million. That way, I can't pay taxes on money that I owe. I have to replace that money, but I can do other things with that money, and I can expand and expand and expand, and pay it off over a period of time, and then borrow it again. That's what they doing, bro. They doing simple stuff, and we sitting up here, talking about my stomach hurt. We talking about I'm hungry, and it's all the opportunities, and you can just listen on the internet. It ain't like if you dumb in 2025, you dumb because you want to be dumb. They tell you everything on IG, the internet. They give the game away for free all day. It's just that we're so comfortable with nothing, and we think, that what we going through is normal. It's really not normal. It's abnormal. We the only people that spend 98% of our money with another group of people. As soon as we get our money, we go straight to Lenox Mall. We bypass all the ghetto stores. We don't even stop in the community. You can see them. Check time, everybody at Lenox Mall. They at the other mall, the other fancy mall. But guess what? They spending 98% of their money with another ethnic group. Now, when they go to the ghetto and they say, girl, let's ride. And they go through Buckhead, they see those beautiful homes, they're just like, man, I wonder what they did to get these houses. Well, they living off 100% of their money and 98% of yours. You bought the house for them. You wonder how these Arabs live so good and these Chinese live so good, all these foreigners that's in the community. They have grocery stores, liquor stores, a gas station, and some of them own property. You wonder how they living good? Because they're taking all the money out the hood and not putting no money back in the hood. They're taking 98% of our money out the hood and going living in the suburbs. Some of them bought whole communities. So we got to wake up, man. That's what I tell the young people. Wake up, man. Get the game. You know what I'm saying? Understand how this game is played. Play chess and not checkers. Chess ain't nothing but controlling the center of the board. Whoever controls the center of the board win the game.